Welcome to the West Virginia Legislature on the West Virginia Channel. Good morning, I'm Beth Voorhees. Today we bring you the Senate live. We are recording the House floor session, and we'll bring you that once the Senate session has ended. While we're waiting for the Senate to gavel in, there are bills on third reading up for passage on the Senate calendar this morning. Among them, Senate Bill 14, limiting successor corporation asbestos-related liabilities. The bill reads that asbestos-related claims threaten the continued viability of uniquely situated companies that have never manufactured, sold, or distributed asbestos or asbestos products and are liable only as successor corporations. Senate Bill 146 is up for passage, establishing standards for early childhood education. The bill says these programs shall provide at least 48,000 minutes annually and no less than 1,500 minutes of instruction per week. There's a rules bill up for passage, Senate Bill 202, regarding the Department of Commerce, and Senate Bill 216 is up for passage, authorizing the Human Rights Commission to promulgate legislative rules relating to Pregnant Workers Fairness Act. Those are the bills up for debate and a vote on the Senate floor this morning.
Senate will come to order. Senate will come to order. All those not having privilege of the floor will please vacate the chamber. Those in the gallery, those on the floor will please rise as we are led in prayer by the Reverend John Hagan of St. Matthew Episcopal Church in Charleston, West Virginia. Please remain standing after the prayer as the junior senator from the 6th leads us in reciting the Pledge of Allegiance. Reverend Hagan.
Holy and ever-living God, compassionate and merciful, we come before you today listening for the voice of truth, open to the heart of compassion. Give these senators the courage to share the dream of hope, to see new possibilities for those who are in need, that each day may be a new day, that your Spirit may be poured forth upon the earth, that a straight path may be made in the wilderness. You are the companion to those who are humble, healer of those who are wounded, strengthener of those who are too weak. You have promised to lift up the powerless and the defenseless, using us to accomplish your will. You sustain and comfort us. So today, with abiding faith and calm assurance, we invoke your presence on these proceedings. Help us to be your beloved community, reminding us that what we have done unto the least of us, we have done unto you. Might your favor fall upon this Senate today, giving those elected members, your people, courage and wisdom and hearts of compassion. Giver of immortal gladness, fill this Senate with new life today. And in all your many names we pray. Amen.
Reverend, thank you. The junior senator from the 6th.
Would the guests in the gallery and those on the Senate floor please join me while I recite the pledge for this great country. I pledge of allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay. All right.
Reading of the journal.
West Virginia Legislature Senate Journal, Charleston, West Virginia, Thursday, January 28, 2016.
The senator from Logan requests unanimous consent that further reading of the journal be dispensed with. Journal be approved. Is there objection? Chair hears none. Further reading of the journal is dispensed with. Journal is approved. Introduction of guests. Senator from Jackson.
Thank you, Mr. President. It's my pleasure and yours to introduce the doctor for the day, Dr. Lee Van Horn of Huntington, West Virginia. He's in the rear of our gallery. If he would stand, the Senate make him welcome.
Further introductions. Further introductions. Communications from the House.
There are none.
Communications from the Executive.
There are none.
Reports from standing committees.
Your Committee on Transportation Infrastructure has had under consideration Senate Bill 12, County Local Powers Act, and reports back a committee substitute for same with the following title: with the recommendation that the committee substitute do pass, but under the original double committee reference, first be referred to the Committee on Finance. Respectfully submitted, Chris Walters, Chair.
Order be received under the bill's original double committee reference. The bill be referred to the Committee on Finance.
Your Committee on the Judiciary has had under consideration committee substitute for Senate Bill 109, repealing code provision related to certain reports by trustees for property, and reports the same back with the recommendation that it do pass. Respectfully submitted, Charles Trump, Chair.
Order be received.
Your Committee on Health and Human Resources has had under consideration Senate Bill 123, treatment for sexually transmitted diseases, and reports the same back with the recommendation that it do pass, but under the original double committee reference, first to be referred to the Committee on the Judiciary. Respectfully submitted, Ryan Ferns, Chair.
The report will be received. Senator from Morgan.
Thank you, Mr. President. I ask unanimous consent that the second committee reference to the Committee on the Judiciary with respect to Senate Bill 123 be waived.
Senator from Morgan requests unanimous consent that the original double committee reference to the Committee on the Judiciary be dispensed with. Is there objection? Chair hears none. Original double committee reference to the Committee on the Judiciary is dispensed with.
Your Committee on Government Organization has had under consideration Senate Bill 148, Board of Accountancy Rules and Rules of Professional Conduct, and reports the same back with the recommendation that it do pass, but under the original double committee reference, first to be referred to the Committee on the Judiciary. Respectfully submitted, Craig Blair, Chair.
Order be received under the bill's original double committee reference. Bill be referred to the Committee on Judiciary.
Your Committee on Energy, Industry, and Mining has had under consideration Senate Bill 182, DEP, Water and Waste Management Rule relating to surface mining reclamation. Also, Senate Bill 183, DEP, Water and Waste Management Rule relating to administrative proceedings and civil penalty assessment. And Senate Bill 185, DEP, Water and Waste Management Rule relating to above-ground storage tank administrative proceedings and civil penalty assessment. And reports the same back with the recommendation that each do pass, but under the original double committee reference, first to be referred to the Committee on the Judiciary. Respectfully submitted, Gregory Elboso, Chair.
Order be received under the bill's original double committee references. The bills will be referred to the Committee on the Judiciary.
Your Committee on Government Organization has had under consideration Senate Bill 254, not allowing county park commissions to prohibit firearms in facilities, and reports back a committee substitute for same, with the recommendation that the committee substitute do pass, but under the original double committee reference, first to be referred to the Committee on the Judiciary. Respectfully submitted, Craig Blair, Chair.
Order be received. Senator from Morgan.
Thank you, Mr. President. I ask unanimous consent that the second committee reference to the Committee on the Judiciary with respect to Senate Bill 254 be dispensed with.
Senator from Morgan requests unanimous consent that the original double committee reference to the Committee on the Judiciary be dispensed with. Is there objection? Chair hears none. The original double committee reference to the Committee on the Judiciary is dispensed with.
Your Committee on Government Organization has had under consideration Senate Bill 261, bringing state code relating to daylight savings time in conformity with federal code, and Senate Bill 306, permitting sale of county or district property online, and reports the same back with the recommendation that they each do pass. Respectfully submitted, Craig Blair, Chair.
Order be received.
Your Committee on Government Organization has had under consideration Senate Bill 268, abolishing Council of Finance and Administration, and reports back a committee substitute for same, with the recommendation that the committee substitute do pass. Respectfully submitted, Craig Blair, Chair.
Order be received.
Your Committee on Health and Human Resources has had under consideration Senate Bill 286, creating commission to accelerate statewide coordination of mental health services for children and adolescents, and reports back a committee substitute for same, with the recommendation that the committee substitute do pass, but under the original double committee reference, first to be referred to the Committee on Finance. Respectfully submitted, Ryan J. Ferns, Chair.
Order be received under the bill's original double committee reference. Bill be referred to the Committee on Finance.
Your Committee on Education has had under consideration Senate Bill 369, reducing legislative education reporting requirements, and reports back a committee substitute for same, with the recommendation that the committee substitute do pass. Respectfully submitted, Dave SYPOLT, Chair.
Order be received.
Your Committee on Government Organization has had under consideration engrossed committee substitute for House Bill 2101, eliminating obsolete government entities, and has amended same, and reports the same back with the recommendation that it do pass as amended. Respectfully submitted, Craig Blair, Chair.
Order be received. Reports from select committees.
There are none.
Introduction of bills. The Senator from Jackson.
Thank you, Mr. President. I request unanimous consent that Senate Bill number 423 through Senate Bill number 435 be considered introduced, read by their titles, referred to the appropriate committees as shown on the chamber automation system.
Senator from Jackson requests unanimous consent that Senate Bill 423 through Senate Bill 435 be considered introduced, read by their titles, and referred to the appropriate committees as shown on the chamber automation system. Is there objection? Chair hears none, so ordered. Resolutions.
Senate Concurrent Resolution 15 by Senator Maynard, Stallings, Wolfle, Plummel, U.S. Army SFC, Jesse Muncie Memorial Bridge.
Under Rules of Senate, resolution lie over one day.
Senate Resolution 14 by Senators Miller, Stallings, Woelfel, Yost, Kessler, Unger, Williams, and Plymel. Earned Income Tax Credit Awareness Day at the Legislature.
The senator from Greenbrier.
Thank you, Mr. President. I request unanimous consent that the resolution be taken up for immediate consideration, committee reference be dispensed with, and the resolution put upon its adoption.
The senator from Greenbrier requests unanimous consent that the resolution be taken up for immediate consideration, committee reference be dispensed with, the resolution be put upon its adoption. Is there objection? Chair hears none. Clerk will read the resolution.
Senate Resolution 14, designated January 29, 2016 as Earned Income Tax Credit Awareness Day at the Legislature.
Questions on adoption of the resolutions or discussion? The senator from Greenbrier.
Thank you, Mr. President. Today is indeed a very special day. It's not a day that we're looking at specific policy, but today we're looking at awareness of earned income tax credits, the federal earned income tax credits, maybe our need for state intern income tax credit, but just the awareness of the whole thing. 150,000 persons in this state get a federal earned income tax credit return. $280 million are received, $250 million are received in funds. 25% of the eligible taxpayers are not applying for earned income tax credit on the federal level. I will tell you the group that we're going to be honoring today, who has been involved in this Awareness Day, are involved in volunteer income tax assistance, child tax credits, and they also are somewhat involved in the BB&T bus, which works not only with tax issues, but college education plans and other things that I would encourage folks to be part of. There will be a reception today. I'll make that announcement later in the Lewis McManus Room, 252, for an opportunity to talk about this and to meet the 2016 Earned Income Tax Credit Champion of the Year, Landau Eugene Murphy, Jr., who will be with us today. Jennifer Thacker is with us, Executive Director of the West Virginia Alliance for Sustainable Families, and Dallas Spencer, President of the West Virginia Alliance for Sustainable Families Board of Directors and Community Development Officer for Woodforest National Bank, who is sponsoring the 2016 EITC outreach campaign. So I ask the Senate, please make Welcome Day and consider this as we gather on this Awareness Day for Earned Income Tax Credit.
Is there further discussion? If not, the question for the Senate is the adoption of the resolution. All those in favor will say aye. Those opposed will say no. The ayes have it. I declare the resolution adopted. The senator from Jackson.
Thank you, Mr. President. I move the Senate stand in brief recess for the purpose of presenting the resolution.
Senator from Jackson moves the Senate stand brief recess for the purpose of presenting the resolution. All those in favor will say aye. Those opposed say no. The ayes have it. I declare the motion adopted. The Senate will stand in brief recess to present the resolution.
You're tuned to the West Virginia Legislature on the West Virginia Channel. A reminder that we will bring you today's House floor session as soon as this morning's Senate floor session has concluded.
Senate will come to order. The clerk will read the next resolution.
Senate Resolution number 15 by Senators Stallings, Yost, Kessler, Unger, Williams, and Plowell. School Counselors' Day at the Legislature.
The senator from Boone.
Mr. President, I request unanimous consent that the resolution be taken up for immediate consideration, committee reference be dispensed with, and resolution be put upon its adoption.
Senator from Boone requests unanimous consent that the resolution be taken up for immediate consideration, committee reference be dispensed with, resolution be put upon its adoption. Is there objection? Chair hears none. Clerk, read the resolution.
Senate Resolution number 15, designating January 29, 2016 as School Counselors' Day at the Legislature.
Questions on adoption of the resolution? Is there discussion? Senator from Boone.
Thank you, Mr. President. We all know the value of school counselors, and I'm honored, as well as this body, to recognize them today. They are actively committed to helping students explore their abilities, strengths, interests related to career awareness and development. We also know about their furthering of the educational, personal, and social growth of the children. Counselors work with teachers and other educators to help students explore their potential and set realistic goals. We also know more and more in our society that they have to actually be counselors of children, not just for career tech and prep, but to help them get through tough social situations that they may have at home. So it's a true honor to recognize them today, and I urge adoption of the resolution.
Is there further discussion? If not, the question for the Senate is the adoption of the resolution. All those in favor say aye. Those opposed say no. The ayes have declared the resolution adopted. Senator from Jackson.
Thank you, Mr. President. I move the Senate stand in brief recess for the purpose of presenting the resolution.
Senator from Jackson moves Senate stand in brief recess for the purpose of presenting the resolution. All those in favor will say aye. Those opposed say no. The ayes have declared the motion adopted. Senate will stand in brief recess to present the resolution. Senate will come to order. Motions. Petitions.
Yes, Mr. President, there's one petition presented by Senator Beach from West Virginia University Institute of Technology Faculty Assembly endorsing the relocation of WVU Tech from Montgomery to Beckley.
Petition will be referred to the Committee on Education. Unfinished business.
Senate Concurrent Resolution 2 urging Congress provide funding for West Virginia National Guard.
Question is on adoption of the resolution. Is there discussion? Question for the Senate then is the adoption of the resolution. All those in favor will say aye. Those opposed say no. The ayes have declared the resolution adopted. The clerk will communicate the action of the Senate to the House.
Senate Concurrent Resolution 14, U.S. Marine Corps PFC Billy Joe Vickers Memorial Bridge.
Resolution be referred to the Committee on Transportation and Infrastructure. Bills on third reading.
In gross committee substitute for Senate Bill 14, limiting successor corporation asbestos-related liabilities, third reading of the bill.
Questions on passage of the bill. Senator from Morgan.
Thank you, Mr. President. The committee substitute for Senate Bill 14 creates a new article in the state code. It would go in Chapter 55, and it's designated as Article 7I, addressing successor asbestos-related liability. The bill will establish 7 new sections of code. This was considered in the Judiciary Committee last week, and the committee substitute reported by the Judiciary Committee combines provisions from the original introduced bill and provisions that have been enacted in the state of Texas on the same subject to form the committee substitute that we have before us. The bill essentially provides some liability protection for companies that are innocent successors to other companies that produced asbestos in certain circumstances. There's a magic date in the bill now of May 13th, 1968, and that was a change from the original bill. Members in the Judiciary Committee will remember the introduced bill had a 1972 date, but May 13th, 1968 is the date when the American Conference of Governmental Industrial Hygienists changed the recommended standard for workplace exposure limits for asbestos. The bill provides that certain companies that acquired a business entity that previously produced asbestos or asbestos-producing products will have their liability limited. And there are exceptions to that. The scope of the bill, there are a list of circumstances when the bill does not apply, and they are set forth in Section 3 of the bill, subsection B. And the bill's application would not affect workers' compensation benefits paid on or behalf of an employer to an employee, claim against a corporation that does not constitute a successor asbestos-related liability that as defined in the Act. 3, an insurance corporation. 4, any obligation under the National Labor Relations Act. 5, a successor that after merger or consolidation continued in the business of mining asbestos or in the business of selling or distributing asbestos fibers, or in the business of manufacturing, distributing, removing, or installing asbestos-containing products which were the same or substantially the same as those products previously manufactured, distributed, removed, or installed by the transferor. 6, an exception is for any contractual obligation existing as of the effective date of this article that was entered into with claimants or potential claimants or their counsel resolving an asbestos claim. 7, any claim made against the estate of a debtor in bankruptcy commenced prior to April 1st of this year under the United States Bankruptcy Code. And 8, a successor asbestos-related liability arising under common law or statute for premises liability or cause of action for premises liability, but only if the successor owned or controlled the same premise or premises at issue after the merger or consolidation. Complicated legal issues involved, but what it does is provide essentially similar, I won't say exactly the same, but similar protections to a successor company after a merger that the successor would have enjoyed if it had kept the company it acquired as a wholly owned and independent subsidiary. Mr. President, I'll be happy to try to answer questions regarding the bill. Otherwise, urge its passage.
Question on passage of the bill. Is there discussion? If not, question for the Senate, shall the bill pass? All those in favor will vote yea. Those opposed vote nay. The clerk will prepare the machine. Has every member voted? If so, the clerk close the machine, ascertain the results. On this question, 33 yeas, 0 nays, 1 absent, not voting. More than a majority of those present and voting having voted in the affirmative, I declare the bill passed. Clerk will communicate the action of the Senate to the House.
Engrossed committee substitute for Senate Bill 146, establishing instruction standards for early childhood education. Third reading of the bill.
Questions on passage of the bill. Senator from Preston.
Thank you, Mr. President. Senate Bill 146 is a bill that we passed last year, very similar in nature, that was vetoed by the governor. It has to do with early childhood education. Back in 2013, Senate Bill 359 prescribed that early childhood education programs must, by next school year, be expanded from 4 days to 5 days. Currently, there's 84% of all the early education programs in the state are operating on a 4-day basis. And we've had been reached out, the counties have reached out to us and have expressed an interest last year and this year both to please let them continue in the 4-day scheme instead of the 5-day scheme because of different financial hardships and the ability for the teachers under a 4-day scheme to have an extra day for collaboration and for planning. Mr. President, the bill would provide the flexibility by replacing the full 5 days per week requirement with the requirements that the early education programs would provide 1,500 minutes per week, which would be adequate for the early education program. I urge adoption, passage of the bill.
Questions on passage of the bill. Is there discussion? If not, the question for the Senate, shall the bill pass? All those in favor vote yea. Those opposed vote nay. The clerk prepare the machine. Has every member voted? If so, the clerk close the machine, ascertain the results. On this question, 33 yeas, 0 nays, 1 absent, not voting. More than a majority of those present and voting having voted in the affirmative, I declare the bill passed. The senator from Jackson.
Thank you, Mr. President. I move the bill be made effective on July 1, 2016, and ask unanimous consent that the roll call used on passage be used to make it so effective.
Senator from Jackson moves the bill be made effective on July 1, 2016, and requests unanimous consent that the roll call used on passage of the bill be used to make it so effective. Is there objection? Chair hears none. On this question, 33 yeas, 0 nays, 1 absent, not voting. More than 2/3 of those elected to the Senate having voted in the affirmative, I declare the bill effective from passage. I declare the bill effective July 1, 2016. Clerk will communicate the action of the Senate to the House.
Engrossed committee substitute for Senate Bill 202, authorizing Department of Commerce promulgate legislative rules. Third reading of the bill.
Questions on passage of the bill. Senator from Morgan.
Thank you, Mr. President. The committee substitute for Senate Bill 202 is one of our rules bundles, and this is a bundle containing, I think it's 11 separate bills rolled into the committee substitute that all come under the heading of the Department of Commerce. So this authorizes the promulgation of those rules. They originally, Senate Bill 202, which is included, is a DNR rule relating to the wildlife resources section containing prohibitions and regarding prohibitions when hunting and trapping. There's a DNR rule relating to general hunting rules. There's a DNR rule relating to wildlife resources relating to deer hunting, a DNR rule relating to wild boar hunting, a DNR rule relating to elk restoration and management. There's a rule from the Division of Labor relating to wage payment collection, another rule from the Division of Labor relating to the Elevator Safety Act, rule from the Division of Labor relating to licensing of elevator mechanics and technicians, and registration of apprentices. There's a rule in the bundle, formerly Senate Bill 224, that comes from the Office of Minors Health, Safety, and Training relating to substance abuse screening standards and procedures. And there's a rule from the there's a rule from the Tourism Commission. Let me come back to that one in just a second. There's a rule from Workforce West Virginia regarding the Prevailing Wage Act bill that was passed last year. The Division of Tourism and the Tourism Commission are astute counsel out there, caught and realized that we have rules from the Division of Tourism which has no statutory rulemaking authority. So just so we're clear, transparent on this, this rule did not go fully through the rulemaking process. It started to go through the rulemaking process, and when everyone realized that the Division of Tourism had no rulemaking authority, they withdrew the rule. The rulemaking authority under that article is vested in the Tourism Commission. So this authorizes and directs a rule that's the same as what the Division of Tourism rule was, with some amendments, but it authorizes it and directs it to be promulgated by the appropriate agency, which is the Tourism Commission. Mr. President, I'll be happy to try to answer any questions from members. Otherwise, urge passage of the bill.
Questions on passage of the bill? Is there discussion? If not, the question for the Senate, shall the bill pass? All those in favor vote yea. Those opposed vote nay. The clerk prepare the machine. Has every member voted? If so, the clerk close the machine, ascertain the results. On this question, 33 yeas, 0 nays, 1 absent, not voting. More than a majority of those present and voting have been voting in the affirmative. I declare the bill passed. The senator from Jackson.
Thank you, Mr. President. I move the bill be made effective from passage and request unanimous consent that the roll call used on passage be used to make it so effective.
Senator from Jackson moves the bill be made effective from passage and requests unanimous consent that the roll call used on passage of the bill be used to make it so effective. Is there objection? Chair hears none on this question. 33 yeas, 0 nays, 1 absent, not voting. More than 2/3 of those elected the Senate having voted in the affirmative, I declare the bill effective from passage. Clerk will communicate the action of the Senate to the House.
Engrossed committee substitute for Senate Bill 216, authorizing Human Rights Commission promulgate legislative rule relating to Pregnant Workers Fairness Act. Third reading of the bill.
Questions on passage of the bill? Senator from Morgan.
Thank you, Mr. President. Committee substitute for Senate Bill 216 is also an authorizing bill for a rule. It's a single rule. And I forget whether it was yesterday or the day before, but we talked about this. This was one of the rules that was in that big DHHR bundle of rules that this body adopted. When that bundle was being made up in the Committee on the Judiciary, this rule had some controversy and some issues. There apparently have been some different versions and amendments offered in the Rulemaking Review Committee. So the committee separated it from the rest of the bundle and addressed it separately. And this is the work product. This bill, committee substitute, represents the work product of the committee. As to the single rule, it came to us from the West Virginia Human Rights Commission. 2 years ago, this body, the legislature, enacted the Pregnant Workers Fairness Act. And so this is the first rule implementing that act that has come before the legislature since it became law 2 years ago. The rule as it came to us from the West Virginia Human Rights Commission, Mr. President, was so far outside the scope of the authority given to that agency by this legislature that the initial committee substitute included just complete rejection of the rule. There were members of the committee whom I would express gratitude here who said we ought not to do that. We ought to take it, work it, fix it, make sure we have a rule that implements the statute passed by this legislature but meets and lives within the parameters of what the legislature enacted 2 years ago. And that's what this committee did. So this rule addresses the implementation of the Pregnant Workers Fairness Act. Just so the members and any members of the public who are interested in knowing, the rule that came to us originally from the Human Rights Commission, Mr. President, required accommodations for men under the Pregnant Workers Fairness Act. Our committee determined that that was outside the scope of the original rule, which was the original act, which was designed to provide workplace protections for women who are pregnant. And so we have conformed and crafted a rule that implements the act. I think it represents some excellent work. We had lots of input on it from members of the committee, and I would be happy to answer questions about it. Otherwise, would urge passage of the bill.
Questions on passage of the bill? Is there discussion? Not the question for the Senate. Shall the bill pass? All those in favor vote yea. Those opposed vote nay. The clerk prepare the machine. Has every member voted? If so, the clerk close the machine and ascertain the results on this question. 33 yeas, 0 nays, 1 absent, not voting. More than a majority of those present and voting having voted in the affirmative, I declare the bill passed. Senator from Jackson.
Thank you, Mr. President. I request unanimous consent that the bill be made effective. I move the bill be made effective from passage and request unanimous consent that the roll call used on passage be used to make it so effective.
Senator from Jackson moves the bill be made effective from passage and requests unanimous consent that the roll call used on passage of the bill be used to make it so effective. Is there objection? Chair hears none on this question. 33 yeas, 0 nays, 1 absent, not voting. More than 2/3 of those elected to the Senate having voted in the affirmative declare the bill effective from passage. Clerk will communicate the action of the Senate to the House. Bills on second reading.
Senate Bill 1-5, adopting learned intermediary doctrine as defense to civil action due to inadequate warnings or instructions. Second reading of the bill.
Are there amendments to the bill?
There are none.
If not, the bill be engrossed and advanced third reading.
Committee substitute for Senate Bill 27, permitting county commissions hire outside attorneys for collection of taxes through courts. Second reading of the bill.
Are there amendments to the bill?
No, sir, there are none.
Not, the bill be engrossed and advanced third reading.
Committee substitute for Senate Bill 150, authorizing Department of Transportation promulgate legislative rules. Second reading of the bill.
Are there amendments to the bill?
There are none.
Not, the bill be engrossed and advanced third reading.
Committee substitute for Senate Bill 288, creating one-day special license for charitable events to sell non-intoxicating beer and wine. Second reading of the bill.
Are there amendments to the bill?
There are none.
Not, the bill be engrossed and advanced third reading.
Senate Bill 329, eliminating sunset provision for commission to study residential placement of children. Second reading of the bill.
Are there amendments to the bill?
There are none.
Not, the bill be engrossed and advanced third reading.
Committee substitute for Senate Bill 338, compiling and maintaining Central State Mental Health Registry. Second reading of the bill.
Are there amendments to the bill?
There are none.
Not, the bill be engrossed and advanced third reading.
Senate Bill 379, relating to candidate filing fees. Second reading of the bill.
Are there amendments to the bill?
There are none.
If not, the bill be engrossed and advanced third reading. Bills on first reading. The Senator from Jackson.
Thank you, Mr. President. I request unanimous consent that all bills on first reading be considered as having been read a first time and advanced to second reading.
Senator from Jackson requests unanimous consent that all bills on first reading be considered as having been read a first time and advanced to second reading. Is there objection? Chair hears none, so ordered. Introduction of guests. Remarks by members. The senior senator from the 17th.
Thank you, Mr. President. I just wanted to let members of the Senate know that the longtime Senate Journal editor, Virginia Ellers, recently passed away. She served the Senate as Journal editor for, I think, nearly 3 decades, and she passed away within the last week. She's going to have a visitation on Sunday and a funeral on Monday, and I just wanted to let the senators know maybe we just have a moment of silence for Ms. Ellers.
Thank you. Further remarks? Senator from Jackson.
Just very quickly, Mr. President, I want to commend our clerk for the day for the great readings and the great job that he's done today reading the bills and so forth. So thank you, clerk, for the day. Also, we on item 13, business, miscellaneous.
Remarks? Well, we're on remarks.
No.
Remarks. Senator from Harrison.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'd request unanimous consent to return to the 11th order of business briefly.
Senator from Harrison requests unanimous consent to return to the 11th order of business. Is there objection? Chair hears none, so ordered. Senator from Harrison.
I would like to take a brief moment to introduce my nephew, who is, I believe, in the East Gallery here. You can imagine what it was like growing up with four of me, and there was four of me, and his father's my oldest brother, who was an executive in Wheeling Hospital, and his mother was a physician, and he's an attorney down here in Charleston. Please help me in welcoming him to the Senate today.
The Senator from Wayne.
I think I'd ask for a moment of silence for, no, I just wanted to stand up. I can't see the clerk because of the way the thing is.
I guess we're back to remarks by members. Further remarks? Further remarks? Miscellaneous business. The Senator from Jackson.
Thank you, Mr. President. I move that leave of absence for the day be granted to the senior senator from the 13th from Monongalia.
Is there objection? Chair hears none, so ordered. Senator from Jackson.
Excuse me, Mr. President, the junior senator from the 13th.
Junior senator from the 17th is excused. From the 13th. Maybe we'll get this right. Senator from
Secondly,
Jackson.
thank you, Mr. President. Subject to announcements, I move the Senate stand adjourned until 11 a.m. on Monday morning.
Are there announcements? Senator from Morgan.
Thank you, Mr. President. Two announcements. Your Committee on the Judiciary will not meet between now and our next floor session, but your subcommittee, your Education Subcommittee, on Senate Bill 321, and that includes Senator from Pleasance and the senior senator from Berkeley County, will meet at 10 a.m. on Monday morning in the Senate Judiciary Conference Room, 210 West.
Senator from Upshur.
Thank you, Mr. President. Your Committee on Agriculture and Rural Development will meet Monday at 1 p.m. in 451M.
Senior Senator from the 15th.
Thank you, Mr. President. Your Committee on Government and Organization will meet at 9 o'clock Monday morning at 208 West, and the agenda will be posted.
Further announcements? Senator from Greenbrier.
Thank you, Mr. President. Just to remind the members once again, the reception in the Lewis McManus Room, 252 main part of the building, for an opportunity to meet the people with the Earned Income Tax Credit Awareness Day, and Landau Murphy will be there also.
Further announcements? If not, the question for the Senate is the Senate stand adjourned until Monday, February 1st at 11 a.m. All those in favor will say aye. Those opposed say no. The ayes have it. I declare the Senate adjourned.
And that concludes today's Senate floor session. We'll be back with the Senate at 11 o'clock on Monday. We'll take you to the House shortly just to brief you on the bills that are up for third reading, up for passage in the House today. House Bill 4227, adding citizen members to the Real Estate Appraiser Licensing and Certification Board. House Bill 4230, adding citizen members to the Board of Registration for Professional Engineers. House Bill 4238, adding citizen members to the Board of Professional Surveyors. And House Bill 4241, adding citizen members to the Real Estate Commission.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Will the members and our guests bow their heads and join me as we pray the prayer of St. Patrick? May the strength of God guide us. May the power of God preserve us. May the wisdom of God instruct us. May the hand of God protect us. May the way of God direct us. May the shield of God defend us. May the angels of God guard us against the snares of the evil one. May Christ be with us. May Christ be before us. May Christ be in us. Christ be over all. May thy grace, Lord, always be ours, this day, O Lord, and forevermore. Amen.
Amen. Members and guests will please remain standing as the Chapmanville Regional High School Choir will sing the national anthem. They are the guests of the gentleman from the 22nd, Delegate Moffitt. Members and guests will please remain standing as we're led in the Pledge of Allegiance by the gentleman from the 34th, Delegate Bulks. The gentleman from the 58th, Delegate Coles.
Would everyone please join me as we honor our country and flag? I pledge
allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Members will please escort our honored guests from the chamber. Gentleman from the 58th. I'm sorry, excuse me. Reading of the Journal.
Journal of the House of Delegates, Charleston, Thursday, January 28, 2016.
The chair recognizes the gentleman from the 64th, Delegate Householder.
Mr. Speaker, I ask unanimous consent that the further reading of the journal be dispensed with and that it be approved of having been read.
The gentleman from the 64th asks unanimous consent the further reading of the journal be dispensed with and it be approved as having been read. Is there objection? Chair hears none. Journal is approved as having been read. Gentleman from the 58th.
Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker. Ladies and gentlemen, today we have a citation presentation recognizing the West Virginia School Counselors Association. To accept the citation, we have with us officials and school counselors from the School Counselors Association. Escorting our special guests into the chamber are delegates Espinoza, Duke, Perry, and Moy.
Clerk, please read the citation.
Whereas the mission of the West Virginia School Counselor Association is to empower, unite, and support professional school counselors in their role to promote student success. And whereas the West Virginia School Counselor Association is the only professional organization that solely represents and advocates for the interests of professional school counselors in West Virginia. And whereas in this time of educational change, the combination of strong advocacy and the growing relationship with the West Virginia Department of Education is of the utmost importance. And whereas West Virginia School Counselors Association strives to represent West Virginia school counselors and to promote professionalism and ethical practice. And whereas school counselors today are vital members of the education team. They help all students in the areas of academic achievement, personal and social development, and career development, ensuring today's students become productive and well-adjusted adults. Therefore, the House of Delegates of the West Virginia Legislature hereby recognizes West Virginia School Counselor Association and directs this citation be presented.
Members will please be at ease a moment while I present the citation. Introduction of guests. The lady from the 16th, Doug Miller.
Mr. Speaker, our West Virginia history heroes are nominated by historical, genealogical, preservation, museum, patriotic, or like organizations from across the state. The purpose of this annual award is to give state-level recognition to individuals for dedicated service on behalf of an organization's programs or for a recent significant contribution to state and local history. This morning, we have 50 individuals who were recognized as West Virginia History Heroes for 2016, and they are with us in the gallery this morning. Would you all please stand so that we can recognize you and tell you how much we appreciate you?
Gentleman from the 42nd, Delegate Ambler.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Now that we've collectively, I'd like to introduce some individually from the history. For Delegates Canterbury, O'Neill, Cooper, and myself, today in the gallery from the Greenbrier Valley, where the air is clean and our river is green, we have with us as recipients of the awards for History Hero, Jim and Barbara Bowling. Would you please stand? And would the House please make them feel welcome?
Gentleman from the 29th, Delegate Cooper.
You said the 29th. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. In keeping with what has already been said about history heroes, I would like to also recognize a couple of more from Summers County. With us today, receiving the award for History Hero is Bill and Donna Brewster from the Pipestem area of Summers County, as well as Dorothy Jean Boley from the city of Hinton, and she is the one who has run that railroad museum there all these years. If those three will stand up, please, and be recognized. Also is Mr. Bill Phillips with us, and he has been a big part of our Veterans Museum as well as a history hero today, and we appreciate them being here. Would you please give them a round of applause? Thank you.
The gentleman for the 32nd delegate passed.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. On behalf of Delegates Kessinger and Perry, I would like to recognize another history hero, Gordon Billheimer, who is in the South Gallery, and he is truly a history hero. I'm pretty sure he and Abraham Lincoln attended law school together. He's a great friend, and please welcome Gordon Billheimer.
Gentleman from 54th, Delegate Evans.
Mr. Speaker, I also have a history hero here today from Antioch in Mineral County, and on behalf of Delegate Rowan and Delegate Howe, I would like for them to stand. That's Dave Frederick and Dolores Darlene Frederick. Would they please stand and make the House make them welcome?
The gentleman from 35th, Delegate Nelson.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. And continuing on, in Kanawha County, the 35th District, we're happy to have Kevin Bragg, and if you would mind standing. And on behalf of Delegate McCuskey, Byrd, and Stansberry, and myself, if the members would make him welcome. He's here from St. Albans. Thank you.
The gentleman from the 2nd, Delegate Weld.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Today, for our West Virginia History Day, we've got a couple of people from the 2nd District, and I apologize I wasn't able to join them this morning, and I haven't seen them yet in the gallery, but I think they're up there. First, we have Vicki Gallagher. She's from Fallensby, and she's very involved, as we know, with the Brooke County Historical Museum. And second, we have Earl Nicodemus, who's from West Liberty and very involved with the historical efforts in West Liberty. So if they could stand and be recognized by the gallery.
Lady from the 3rd, Delegate Storch.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. It's my favorite day when my favorite former history hero can come down to Charleston and visit. I would ask if Jean Finstein and Judy Hendrickson, who've come to accompany our history heroes from Wheeling, would stand. We also have some other guests with us from Winnack. We have Beth Pash and Jake Doherty, and we also have Travis Henline with Independence Hall. I would ask if they would stand and the House please make them welcome.
Gentleman from the 27th, Delegate Ellington.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. On behalf of the Mercer County delegates, Gerhardt, Moore, and Schott, and myself, we also have a history hero here, Miss Joan Williams. If she would rise and be recognized, she's from Lashmead, and the House make them welcome. Thank you.
Lady from 65th, Delegate Upson.
On behalf of Delegates Skinner and Espinosa, we have our Jefferson County history hero, Kurt Mason. If you're in the gallery, would you please stand and with the House make him feel welcome?
Gentleman from the 7th, Delegate Ireland.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Also, a History Hero Day bring us a lady from Ritchie County, D.J. Allen, and accompanying her is her grandson, Jason, and also from Pleasant County, Patty Bill and Larry Butcher, and his wife is accompanying him. So would they please stand? DJ in the South Gallery, Butcher and Bill, thank you very much.
Gentleman from the 11th, Delegate Atkinson.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
I'd like to recognize 2016 History Hero from Rome County Historical Society, Richard Greathouse, in our West Gallery. And if he would, please stand. Would the House please make him welcome? Thank you.
John from the 14th, Doug Butler.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. On behalf of Delegates Cadle, Ely, and me, we also have a history hero. This is Mr. Jack Fowler, if he would stand, and his lady friend Doris. Mr. Fowler had a long history, as I remember correctly, at Ravenswood Aluminum. He's also been involved in just about everything going on in the community, including the Mason County Development Authority, and most recently the Point Pleasant River Museum, where you can see a model of the Silver Bridge that fell back in 1967, among other things, at the museum. So would the House please make him welcome? Mr. Speaker, I also have about half of a classroom here on the PAGE program. I have Allison Marie Legg, accompanied by her mom, Donna. I have Anna Taylor. I also have Samantha K. Sturgeon, accompanied by her mom, Lisa. I have Charles Gill, accompanied by his mom, Buffy. I have Madison Staggs, Abigail Lloyd, and her mom, Angela, Cassandra Meadows, Clarissa Crank, and Shelby Mays. Would the House please make them all welcome, please?
Late from the 9th, Doug Border Shepherd.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I, too, am honored to introduce a history hero today from Wart County. I appreciate him making the trip down here. His name is Thorne Roberts, and if the members will give him a welcome, a warm welcome, I'd appreciate it. Thank you very much.
Late from 31st, Doug Arbonne.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Up in the gallery to my left, I have a good friend that's here for History Day representing Wyoming County. Jim Cook, would you wave to everyone? And I'd like the House to make him welcome.
The gentleman from the 28th, Doug Cooper.
Thank you again, Mr. Speaker. On behalf of Delegate O'Neill and me, I would also like to extend a special welcome to the two ladies that keep the John Henry Festival going. Up in the West Gallery, Dolores Mormon and Sheila Johnson, if they would stand, please.
Late from 36, Doug Guthrie.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. On another note, today is the day we kick off the 2016 tax season, and I would like to recognize two of the regional outreach coordinators in West Virginia, Ed Davis of the United Way of the River Cities serving Cabell, Lincoln, Mason, and Wayne counties, Valicia Leary of the United Way of Central West Virginia serving Boone, Clay, Kanawha, Logan, Mingo, and Putnam counties. The EITC coalitions provide working individuals and families free tax preparation through the IRS Volunteer Income Tax Assistance Program. And with your help, I'd like to make these folks welcome.
Lady from the 46th, Doggett Smith.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I'm pleased to introduce my heroes. They are my history heroes and my heroes. Two of the finest people I've ever known, Ron and Barb McVaney. Will they please stand? They run the Mountaineer Military Museum about a block from my house. I invite y'all to come to the Mountaineer Military Museum. Mr. McVaney made a promise to his Vietnam War best friend to honor veterans. And this is a place to honor veterans. It's a block from my house. Come see me and I'll walk down with you. I don't think I've seen a veteran leave who wasn't weeping. It's such a powerful place. And so I'm pleased to introduce Ron and Barb McVaney. I'd also like to introduce On behalf of delegates Hanshaw and Boggs and myself, Jason Gum, who lives in Lewis County and who's the history hero from Gilmer County. He is the archivist from Glenville State College. If he is here, will he please stand too? And will House please make these folks welcome?
Gentleman from 29th, Delegate Moy.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. On behalf of all the delegates that represent Raleigh County, we have some very special guests with us here today. As I call your name, if you don't mind, stand up so everybody can recognize you. First, we have Donald R. Davis. He is accompanied by his daughter, Julie, and I understand Julie works with my wife at Raleigh General. We also have with us Scott and Cindy Worley. And will the House please make our very special guest welcome?
Gentleman from the 16th, Delegate Morgan.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. In keeping with the other history heroes of the day from Cabell County, and on behalf of the Cabell and Wayne County delegates, we have 6 persons: Eva Jo Patterson, Dr. Bernice Morris, Marilyn Coleman, Sherry Stevenson, John Richardson, and Don McGraw. If they would stand in the House, please make them welcome.
Gentleman from the 3rd, Delegate Fluharty.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. On behalf of Delegate Storch and myself, I have a great friend in the gallery that was a recipient of the History Heroes this afternoon. I'm sorry I couldn't be there. Peggy Niebergall, would you please stand and the House make her feel welcome?
Gentleman from the 4th, Delegate Farrow.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I have several introductions to make today, and as I call your name, if you'd please stand. I have a history hero, Sharon DeRay, and her husband Rich, if they would please stand. Also, Peggy Niebergall, good friend of mine, her sister Sharon Ebert, her brother Art Niebergall, 2 former students, Georgianne Pyle Rogers and her mother Trudy Pyle, and a former student, Jake Doherty. If they would all please stand and let the House make them welcome.
Gentleman from the 50th, Delegate Caputo.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. On behalf of Delegate Manchin, Longstreth, and me, we have some very special guests with us today from Marion County for History Day. They're here from the Northern Appalachian Coal Mining Heritage Association, and if you've ever traveled up the interstate through Marion County and you see that humongous coal miner that's spinning around there, that's that place. It's a miniature golf course designed strictly from old coal mining artifacts. It's an interesting place. They also have a coal mine heritage museum in Marion County. I know I'm giving a commercial, Mr. Speaker. I appreciate a little bit of latitude. But would the House please welcome Mike Rahali and Sherry Kugel to the chamber. Thank you.
Gentleman from 38th, Delegate Lane.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Ladies and gentlemen, I'd like to introduce 2 history heroes from West Virginia, from Cross Lanes, who were nominated as a team. Edison L. and Dorothy L. Gannell of Cross Lanes. If you would please stand and the House would make them welcome.
Gentleman from the 45th, Delegate Hamilton.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. On behalf of Delegate Peggy Smith and Delegate Dana Lynch and me, I'd like to introduce Brett Miller as one of our history heroes from Upshur County. Please make him welcome.
Gentleman from the 48th, Delegate Miley.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. On behalf of all of the delegates from Harrison County, which is the 48th District, we are pleased to welcome and recognize Crystal Weimer of Clarksburg, who was nominated as a history hero by the Harrison County, West Virginia Historical Society. If Ms. Weimer could stand and be recognized.
Lady from the 21st, Delegate White.
Mr. Speaker, I would like to honor history heroes. Our nominee was Reuben D. Mitchell of Baysden. I'd like for everyone in the House to make him welcome. Thank you.
Lady from 16th, Delegate Miller.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, I'm pleased to announce that, sponsored by the West Virginia Academy of Family Physicians and celebrating the 27th anniversary of the Doc for a Day program, our family doctor today is Dr. Lee Van Horn from Huntington. If Dr. Van Horn would please stand up, we will all give him a warm welcome.
Further introductions. Reports of standing committees.
Committee on Banking and Insurance has had under consideration House Bill 4245, requiring the cashier or executive officer of a banking institution to provide shareholders with the institution's most recent year-end audited financial statement. Reports the same back with amendment, with recommendation that it do pass as amended, that it be referred to the Committee on Judiciary.
Report be received and the bill be referred to the Committee on the Judiciary.
Committee on Banking and Insurance has had under consideration House Bill 4244, eliminating the need for a public hearing when no objection is filed on an application from an out-of-state, state-chartered credit union to establish a branch in West Virginia. Reports the same back with the recommendation that it do pass, that it be referred to the Committee on Judiciary.
Report be received and the bill be referred to the Committee on the Judiciary.
Committee on Banking and Insurance has had under consideration House Bill 4315, relating to air ambulance fees for emergency treatment or air transportation. Reports the same back with its title amended, with recommendation that it do pass, that it be referred to Committee on Finance.
Report be received and the bill be referred to the Committee on Finance.
Committee on Small Business, Entrepreneurship, and Economic Development has had under consideration House Bill 2897, Young Entrepreneur Reinvestment Act. Reports the same back with amendment, with recommendation that it do pass as amended, that it be referred to Committee on Finance.
Report be received and the bill be referred to the Committee on Finance.
Committee on Senior Citizen Issues has had under consideration House Bill 4306, prohibiting persons who have committed crimes against the elderly from performing any court-ordered public service involving the elderly, and House Bill 4309, increasing criminal penalties for conviction of certain offenses of financial exploitation of an elderly person. Reports the same back with the recommendation that each do pass and that they be referred to the Committee on Judiciary.
Report be received and each bill be referred to the Committee on the Judiciary.
Committee on Health and Human Resources has had under consideration House Bill 4243, extending the time that certain nonprofit community groups are exempt from the moratorium on creating new nursing home beds. Reports the same back with recommendation that it do pass.
Report be received.
Committee on Health and Human Resources has had under consideration House Bill 4112, Department of Health and Human Resources, rule relating to emergency medical services, House Bill 4115, rule relating to chronic pain management licensure, and House Bill 4116, rule relating to neonatal abstinence centers. Reports the same back with amendment, with recommendation that each do pass as amended and that they be referred to the Committee on Judiciary.
Report be received and each bill be referred to the Committee on the Judiciary.
Committee on Pensions and Retirement has had under consideration House Bill 4093, Consolidated Public Retirement Board, rule relating to the teachers' retirement system, and House Bill 4094, rule relating to refund reinstatement retroactive service, loan and correction of error interest factors. Reports the same back with recommendation that each do pass and that they be referred to the Committee on Judiciary.
Report be received and the bills be referred to the Committee on the Judiciary.
Committee on Pensions and Retirement has had under consideration House Bill 4092, Consolidated Public Retirement Board, rule relating to the teachers' defined contribution system. Reports the same back with amendment, with recommendation that it do pass as amended and that it be referred to Committee on Judiciary.
Report be received and the bill be referred to the Committee on the Judiciary. Reports of Select Committees. Messages from the Executive. Messages from the Senate.
The Clerk of the Senate announces the passage by the Senate of Committee Substitute for Senate Bill 262, eliminating need for law enforcement to obtain court order prior to having access to inmate mail and phone recordings.
Message be received and the bill be referred to the Committee on the Judiciary.
The Senate has passed Committee Substitute for Senate Bill 290, assignment of wages by employers and payment by payroll card.
Message be received and the bill be referred to the Committee on the Judiciary. Resolutions.
House Concurrent Resolution 28 by Delegate Smiley, Waxman, and others. Corporal John Belcastro Bridge.
Gentleman from the 58th.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I ask unanimous consent that further reading of resolutions introduced be dispensed with, and each resolution be formally introduced and referred to the appropriate committee as listed on the chamber automation system.
The gentleman from 58th asks unanimous consent that further reading of resolutions introduced be dispensed with, that each resolution be considered formally introduced and referred to the appropriate committees as indicated on the chamber automation system. Is there objection? Chair hears none. Each resolution will be considered formally introduced and so referred. Petitions, motions, bills introduced.
House Bill 4326 by delegates Hamricks and Waxman, making special registration plates for volunteer firefighters.
Gentleman from the 58th.
Mr. Speaker, I ask unanimous consent that further reading of bills introduced be dispensed with, and each bill be formally introduced and referred to the appropriate committee as listed on the chamber automation system.
The gentleman from the 58th asks unanimous consent that further reading of bills introduced be dispensed with, that each bill be considered formally introduced, referred to the appropriate committees as indicated on the chamber automation system. Is there objection? Chair hears none. Each bill will be so introduced and referred. Unfinished business. Bills on third reading.
Committee substitute for House Bill 4227, adding citizen members to the Real Estate Appraiser Licensing and Certification Board.
Question before the House is the passage of the bill. The gentleman from the 58 to explain the bill. Or excuse me, the gentleman from the 56 to explain the bill.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. HB 4227 is the first of 4 bills in response to the North Carolina Board of Dental Examiners versus the Federal Trade Commission case that was decided by the United States Supreme Court last year. The decision leaves three practical alternatives to address the court's ruling: dissolve the board, make the board subservient to a state agency, or reconstitute the board to have a majority of non-market participants. Currently, 4 members of the Real Estate Appraiser Licensing and Certification Board are licensed real estate appraisers. 2 members have experience as lenders for a financial institution, 2 members are unlicensed citizens, and 1 is a representative of an appraisal management company. The bill prohibits the representative from the appraisal management company from also holding a real estate appraiser's license, and provides for his or her removal should he or she obtain an active appraiser's license. This ensures that the board has a majority of non-market participants and complies with the North Carolina Dental Board case. I urge passage.
Are there other members desiring to speak to passage of the bill? Gentleman from the 16th, Delegate Morgan.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Would the chairman yield for a question?
Gentleman yield. Gentleman yields.
This, as you mentioned, these 4 bills are all very similar that we will be taking up. I guess a series of questions maybe. Does this enlarge the size of each one of these boards?
This board, it does not.
Sir?
This board does not get larger.
Doesn't get larger. Does the makeup of the board get changed?
It's slightly, only that the appraiser cannot also hold a real estate license.
So, and do the qualifications get changed on these of who can hold those positions?
On this bill, no, other than the appraiser.
And I think you mentioned the North Carolina dental hygienist or others in this, and probably a ruling from the United States Supreme Court, and this is purported to make that agreeable with that ruling. Is that correct?
That is correct. Justice Kennedy wrote the majority opinion, and in it, I'm quoting, "State agencies controlled by active market participants who possess singularity strong private interests pose the very risk of self-dealing."
And West Virginia is doing it because our Attorney General suggested that this solution is the best solution?
It was the result of multiple meetings during the interim and coming up with viable solutions, and this seemed to fit the best with ours, or with our state.
In general, excuse me, in general, what has been the reaction of the boards that you are proposing to make the changes to?
It has been mixed. We have been meeting with the boards as we develop the bills, making sure that we fully understood what each member's function was. In some of the future ones, there'll be some I can talk about. I can't talk about them because it's not on this bill. But making sure that we made sure that they had a the expertise needed to protect the public's interest.
Has there been some question from the boards as to the fact that board members in general are hard to find because of the time involved in serving, and obviously they do it out of their desire to keep their industry or their profession straight, but I have heard that qualified candidates to serve on these boards are difficult to come by. Is that true?
It could be, depends on the board. In this case, there didn't seem to be an issue.
Is it possible that there are other solutions to these changes that conceivably have not been fully explained or explored?
Well, when I read the description, I mentioned two of the other solutions that don't seem viable in our state.
Thank you. It's my intention to vote no on this because I think that West Virginia is the only state so far that has chosen this route, and there must be a better route than confusing all these boards. I intend to vote no.
Gentleman from the 13th, Delegate Ely.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I think all of us here that are, regardless of what side of the aisle we're on, we're looking to be good stewards of taxpayer money. Obviously, we don't always agree on what the best route to that is, but I think we have an interest in not getting sued as a state, especially in times of budget crisis. And the other two options have been presented to us. Those really aren't options to be able to keep the boards functional in the way that we want. One of them is outright dissolving them, which that doesn't do anybody any good. So I would encourage support of this bill and those just like it. It's certainly not a partisan bill. I like it that for once, West Virginia is actually being proactive instead of reactive. Instead of waiting for bad things to happen, we're going to reduce our exposure to the risk of getting sued about not being in compliance with these boards. I feel like I say it every time. Again, I've got experience in local government. I know what it's like to have to appoint people to boards. It is very difficult in some cases to find people to appoint to boards, and so I'm very sympathetic. But I'm even more sympathetic as someone whose entity has been sued that a big goal needs to be to reduce your exposure to getting sued. This is a very simple fix. It's not partisan. It's a way to make sure that we're financially responsible and that these boards perform their intended functions. So for all those reasons, I encourage members to vote yes on this bill and those like it. Thank you.
Are there other members desiring to speak to the passage of the bill? Gentleman from 56 wish to close debate on the bill.
Thank you, Mr.
Gentleman from the 1st.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Yes, I believe we need to take steps to ensure that in light of the U.S. Supreme Court ruling versus the dental board in North Carolina, that we do protect our board members, whatever those different board members may be, from civil liability in the wake of that U.S. Supreme Court case. So I would like to give a lot of credibility to the gentleman from Mineral County for doing the right thing here, and we really need to push forward and make sure that our government board members are protected from some sort of civil liability, and I think the gentleman from Mineral County is going at it in the right approach.
Gentleman from the 56 to close debate.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. One thing I did want to add is we are one of the first states to meet since because of the part-time legislature, we are one of the first states to meet since the Supreme Court decision. So, and each state is different in how their regulatory boards are structured. So you're going to have unique solutions across the various states. I urge passage.
Question for the House is the passage of the bill. All those in favor will vote aye. Those opposed will vote no. The clerk will please prepare the machine. Has each member voted? If so, the clerk will close the machine and ascertain the result. And that question, 75 ayes, 23 nays, 2 members absent not voting. Majority of members present having voted in the affirmative, I declare the bill passed. Clerk, please report the title.
Committee substitute for House Bill 4227.
Are there amendments to the title?
Delegate Howe moves to amend the title.
Question for the House is adoption of the title amendment. All those in favor will say aye. Those opposed, no. The ayes appear to have it. The ayes do have it. Declare the title amendment adopted. Clerk, please communicate the action of the House to the Senate and request concurrence therein. Further bills on third reading.
Committee substitute for House Bill 4230, adding citizen members to the Board of Registration for Professional Engineers.
Question for the House is passage of the bill. Gentleman from the 56th to explain the bill.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Like the previous bill, HB 4230 is in response to the North Carolina Board of Dental Examiners versus the Federal Trade Commission case decided by the United States Supreme Court last year. This bill will reconfigure the Board of Professional Surveyors so that the membership will consist of 2 licensed engineers, 2 retired, inactive, or emeritus licenses, and 1 citizen member. It provides for automatic removal if the non-practicing licensing members obtain an active license, and at the request of the agency, the creation of an emeritus license. This ensures that the board has a majority of non-market participants and complies with the North Carolina Dental Board case. I urge passage.
Are there other members desiring to speak to passage of the bill? Gentleman from the 16th, Delegate Morgan.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Would the chairman yield?
Gentleman yield? Gentleman yields.
Is it true that not all of these boards have those particular, I can't find it right in front of me, emeritus, retired, inactive, to select from? I mean, those are not classifications of their membership, is that correct, in all of these?
If they didn't have that specific type and the board requested it and felt that it was needed to fulfill the mission of not having non-market participants, we are creating it like we did in this bill.
And if this legislation, or all 4 of them, pass, these will be the first in the nation, is that correct? So that this legislature will actually have done something first, whether it's right or wrong, is that correct?
We will do something first that's right.
Thank you.
Further members desiring to speak to passage of the bill? Not the question for the House is passage of the bill. Those in favor will vote aye. Those opposed will vote no. The clerk will prepare the machine. Has every member voted? If so, the clerk will close the machine and ascertain the result. On that question, 75 ayes, 23 nays, 2 members absent not voting. Majority of members present having voted in the affirmative, I declare the bill passed. Clerk, please report the title.
Committee substitute for House Bill 4230.
Are there amendments to the title? Not the title is read by the clerk will be and remain the title of the bill. Clerk, please communicate the action of the House to the Senate and request concurrence therein. Further bills on third reading.
Committee substitute for House Bill 4238, adding citizen members to the Board of Professional Surveyors.
Question for the House is passage of the bill. The gentleman from the 56th to explain the bill.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Like the previous bills, HB 4238 is response to the North Carolina Board of Dental Examiners versus the Federal Trade Commission case decided by the U.S. Supreme Court. This bill will reconfigure the Board of Professional Surveyors so that its membership will be consistent, or will consist of 2 licensed surveyors, 1 retired, inactive, or emeritus licensee, and 2 citizen members. It provides automatic renewal for non-practicing members if they obtain an active license. This ensures that the board will have a majority of non-market participants and complies with the North Carolina Board of Dental Examiners case. I urge passage.
Are there other members desiring to speak to the passage of the bill? Gentleman from the 16th, Delegate Morgan.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Just couldn't let it go by and say for the above reasons, I still will vote no.
Further members desiring to speak to the passage of the bill? If not, the question for the House is a passage of the bill. Those in favor will vote aye. Those opposed will vote no. The clerk will prepare the machine. Has each member voted? If so, the clerk will close the machine and ascertain the result. On that question, 72 ayes, 26 nays, 2 members absent not voting. Majority of members present having voted in the affirmative, I declare the bill passed. Clerk, please report the title.
Committee substitute for House Bill 4238.
Are there amendments to the title?
Delegate Howe moves to amend the title.
Question for the House is the adoption of the title amendment. All those in favor will say aye. Those opposed, no. The ayes appear to have it. The ayes do have it. I declare the title amendment adopted. Clerk, please communicate the action of the House to the Senate and request concurrence therein. Further bills on third reading.
Committee substitute for House Bill 4241, adding citizen members to the Real Estate Commission.
Question for House is adoption of the bill. Gentleman from the 56th, Delegate Howe.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. This is the final bill, HB 4241, in response to the North Carolina Board of Dental Examiners versus the Federal Trade Commission case decided by the United States Supreme Court last year. This bill will reconfigure the Real Estate Commission so that members will consist of 3 licensed real estate brokers or agents, 2 bankers or attorneys not licensed under this article, and 2 citizen members. It provides for automatic removal if the non-practicing members obtain an active license. The bill also prohibits more than 4 members being from the same political party. It ensures that the board has a majority of non-market participants and complies with the North Carolina Board of Dental Examiners case. I urge passage.
Are there other members desiring to speak to the passage of the bill? Not the question for the House is the passage of the bill. Those in favor will vote aye. Those opposed will vote no. The clerk will prepare the machine. Has each member voted? If so, the clerk will close the machine and ascertain the result. On that question, 73 ayes, 25 nays, 2 members absent not voting. Majority of members present having voted the affirmative, I declare the bill passed. Clerk, please report the title.
Committee substitute for House Bill 4241.
Are there amendments to the title? If not, the title is read by the clerk will be and remain the title of the bill. Clerk, please communicate the action of the House to the Senate and request concurrence therein. Bills on second reading.
Senate Bill 364.
Gentleman from the 58th.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I ask unanimous consent the bill lie over.
Objection's been heard. Gentleman from the 58th.
Mr. Speaker, I move the bill lie over.
Gentleman from the 58th moves that the bill lie over. All those in favor will vote aye. Aye. Those opposed, no? No. Ayes appear to have it. Roll call has been demanded. Is the demand sustained? Demand is sustained. All those in favor of the gentleman's motion that the bill lie over will vote aye. Those opposed will vote no. The clerk will prepare the machine. Go. Has every member voted? So the clerk will close the machine and ascertain the result. On that question, 64 ayes, 34 nays, 2 members absent not voting. The majority of those present and voting, having voted in the affirmative, I declare the motion adopted. The bill will lie over. What purpose the gentleman from the 48th recognition? Okay. Further bills on second reading.
House Bill 4189.
Okay. Gentleman from the 58th.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I ask unanimous consent the bill lie over.
The gentleman from the 58th asks unanimous consent that the bill lie over. Is there objection? Chair hears none. The bill will lie over. Further bills on second reading.
House Bill 4235 relating to the publication requirements of the administration of estates.
Are there amendments? If not, the bill will be engrossed and advanced to third reading. Bills on first reading.
Committee substitute for House Bill 4175 relating generally to homeschooling.
Bill be advanced. Leaves of absence. Remarks by members of the House.
Mr. Speaker, 2 leaves of absence today for our colleagues, Delegate Boggs and Delegate Walters.
Without objection, leave will be granted. Remarks by members of the House. Gentleman from the 10th, Delegate Kelly.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. This morning in our opening ceremonies, we had a group of young people came before us and a cappella sang the national anthem. And I just wanted to say that I wanted to commend those young people for their performance this morning, and I wanted to let them know, if they're in the audience, that they brought a chill to me, and I appreciated what they did, and I certainly appreciated the way they represented our national anthem. Thank you so much.
Lady from the 46th, Delegate Smith.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. You all listen up because this is important. Last night, the West Virginia Association of School Administrators in their state meeting selected the School Superintendent of the Year for our state. And I am so delighted to introduce to my right the State School Superintendent of the Year for 2016, our dear friend and delegate, Frank Bucky Blackwell. Please give him a hand.
Gentleman from the 22nd, Delegate Moffitt.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. As Delegate Kelly had said, the Chamber Choir did a great job today, and Delegate Eldridge and Rodriguez and Phillips and I are very proud of them. They're in town for the Charleston, West Virginia American Choral Directors Association Winter Conference. That conference represents all 55 West Virginia counties. The finale of their conference will be on Saturday at 1 p.m. in the Municipal Auditorium right down the street. It'll have feature performances by the junior and high school, middle school, junior high/middle school honor choir, the all-state chamber choir, and the collegiate honor chamber choir. If anyone's in town for the weekend, tomorrow, Saturday, 1 o'clock, please stop by the Municipal Auditorium and see these talented students. Thank you.
Further remarks by members? Gentleman for the first, Delegate McGeehan.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Try to keep this brief, but I'm here to address a policy that's near and dear to my heart and near and dear to several other members of this body, and that is Common Core standards and curriculum. You know, Stoic philosopher Seneca once stated that ignorance is the cause of fear. And I'll get into that in a little bit later here, but Common Core really is nothing short of the next step towards the nationalization of education. Completely relinquishing and removing education from the local level. And it merely builds a prior federal policy, a previous federal policy introduced by the Bush administration called No Child Left Behind. So Common Core sort of builds upon that precedent of federal intervention into state matters, specifically education. You know, first, this concept was elaborated to me during my first term here in the legislature. And during my first term, in which then the school superintendent at the time, by the name of Stephen Payne, announced at a committee that this new policy back in 2009 by then the Secretary of Education at the federal level, Arne Duncan, was pushing, was this uniform curriculum that would be forced on all schools within the United States. You know, and I was recognized and asked the state school superintendent, Stephen Payne, at the time in 2009, if he realized how dangerous that sort of policy could become. Having one entity essentially monopolize and control what every single student across the country would learn. And he kind of sloughed off that answer and said, your concerns are misfounded. But this is a time in 2009 when Common Core really didn't have a name. It was just this development process of developing a common sort of curriculum across the entire country. And so when I pointed out that this was a dangerous course of action to take, you know, I mentioned he sort of sloughed off my answer and sort of did a two-step on it. But for one entity, Washington, D.C., to control what is taught in literally every school in the United States is a very dangerous precedent to set. So philosophically, you know, that is one reason, and that I oppose Common Core. There are many others, but of course, in the Republican Party platform, Republicans adamantly push for local control of education. Otherwise, what's the point of having a local school board? So, you know, Common Core, in some respects, reminds me of some themes pointed out by George Orwell's famous novel, 1984. There's some very Orwellian type connections with Common Core and sort of the points that George Orwell points out in that famous novel. But then we must reflect, do a little bit of a reflection. If a standard or a curriculum is already common, that is, if a school is already teaching something which is truly common, then all these schools are already pursuing these common interests. So that points out that it's really a moot point. On the other hand, if it's not truly common, then what you have is essentially the federal government indirectly imposing what is not common and what they think arbitrarily schools should be teaching. So there's sort of a dichotomy and a paradox there by saying this is common curriculum. Go on with this. You know, education is a very critical service to our citizens. Common Core is clearly a failure, just as No Child Left Behind was. For the past year, several members of this body have diligently worked hard to research, to understand, to get on numerous conference calls, to study Common Core words, Common Core policies, Common Core curriculum, the detriments, maybe the upsides to it, but diligently researching these issues. And this work has been done for the last 12 months. Hard work, countless hours, numerous conference calls with subject matter experts that we brought in to testify in Education Committee during interims. We had these subject matter experts from around the country that were testifying and saying how detrimental Common Core curriculum and standards are. And a lot of work has been done by not just myself, but many others. My colleague from Berkeley County, my colleague down there from, I believe it's Mason County, several others. And you know, it's very frustrating to see that Common Core repeal bill has still not been placed on the education agenda. So what has been done since that time frame, since this House, this chamber passed out last year an overwhelmingly bipartisan supported Common Core repeal bill, giving clear direction in our will to repeal Common Core going forward, even though the Senate failed to take it up, it still was a signal in a direction that we're willing to head towards. And so I believe several members here have the attitude and the outright disdain towards these efforts that several members, including myself and many others, that have been doing all of this diligent research and studying to come up with a correct way to not only repeal Common Core, but to develop what standards and curriculum that best serve West Virginia. And this entire time, we have had an attitude, an outright disdain towards our efforts by certain members of the state school board and most especially the state school superintendent. And if you remember, not recently, not too long ago, the president of the state school board admitted that the current state school superintendent, Dr. Martirano, was specifically hired to keep Common Core in place. And this is a gentleman that has hired 2 or 3 tax-funded lobbyists making 6 figures each to lobby members of the legislature and spread, I don't want to use this phrase, it might not be politically correct, but spread fear and propaganda to the members to scare them from not vote to repeal Common Core, but to keep Common Core in place. Like I said, last year, this House overwhelmingly passed out a bill to repeal Common Core in bipartisan fashion, clearly signaling the direction and the intent of the legislature. Since that time frame, over the last 10 months, the state school superintendent has spent hundreds of thousands of tax dollars, maybe even more than that. I've got some estimates that say the state school superintendent, since that time frame when this House repealed Common Core, since that time frame, some estimates say it's in the millions of dollars regarding what the state school superintendent, Dr. Martirano, has spent promoting Common Core throughout the state. And really, it's a marketing tour to save Common Core because he's obsessed with it or he's dedicated to it. I don't know what his reasonings are. But he basically ignored the will of the legislature and took it upon himself to go around the state and push to ensure Common Core stays in place. He's been marketing this all over the state with this so-called website called the Academic Spotlight Review. This website was deliberately set up, but it was set up so that teachers around the state could go into this website and comment on each Common Core standard. And these standards, by the way, are almost 200 pages long. Now, here's something about this Academic Spotlight website, okay? You might not know this. Okay, if a teacher finds a time and goes in to review the standards and mark which standard they like and which standard they don't like. Well, if you like the standard in this website that was probably cost north of $250,000 to put together, tax money, if you didn't like the standard, all you had to do was go in and essentially click one button for a thumbs up. Okay? So if you like the standard, all you had to do is go through and click like, thumbs up. But the way they had this website tailored, if you didn't like the standard and you had an objection to a specific standard, Common Core standard, the teacher would have to go in and not just click a thumbs up. They would have to go in and type comments as to why they did not like that standard, which of course is time consuming. Teachers don't have a whole lot of time on their breaks to do this, and teachers just often don't have the time and effort to go in and analyze these standards, and they might not like a whole lot of them, but they have other things to do. They got to get to class. They got to teach social studies. They got to teach science. They got to teach mathematics. So it's much easier to just go in, get the job done, and click like, because if you don't like it, you have to write out an explanation, and that's very time consuming. So clearly, this was skewed to ensure that the state school superintendent's return on this website would reflect overwhelmingly support from the education field's endorsement of Common Core standards. And of course, after the academic spotlight review that was headed up, an enormous amount of money, tax money was spent on it. After that was completely finished, of course, the state school superintendent, Dr. Martirano, came out and said, overwhelmingly support for these Common Core standards. 95% or something like that was the figure he gave in support. Well, of course, when you design, the review on this website to make it easier just to give a thumbs up to standards, and you make it very harder and time consuming to have to go in and explain why you don't like a standard, it's skewed that way. So he continued to praise the public review from teachers about how wonderful Common Core standards were based on these website results. And then, all of a sudden, he also conducted numerous town halls. Okay, it's important to remember that he went a lot around and basically held a series of town hall meetings on Common Core throughout the state. I attended one. Actually, I attended one with my colleague from Berkeley. And he was there. I was there. My colleague from the Eastern Panhandle over here were present there. Let me tell you, this was not a town hall open dialogue where citizens could attend, ask questions from the state school superintendent, ask questions from his hired, basically tax-funded lobbyists that were in attendance. You had to write down your question on an index card, okay? Then turn it in to the state school superintendent's chief of staff. They screen the questions. So if there was a difficult question, they threw that index card out. And they were only giving the softball questions to the panel that was full of these top-ranking educational bureaucrats within the Department of Education here in Charleston. So they deliberately screened the difficult questions that they didn't want to address. They only accepted the quote-unquote softball questions, which I think that's very disingenuous. I mean, most folks, when they hear the term town hall meeting, they expect to be able to show up, have a microphone, voice their opinion, and ask questions to the panelists sitting behind the desk in the front, of the room or on stage. That's not how these town hall forums were conducted. Again, I believe that was very disingenuous, saying that they were having this open dialogue in these town halls. Very disingenuous. Very skewed to ensure that only polite and easily answerable questions were put forward. But the state school superintendent continued to praise Common Core all year long, going on radio, television, holding these town hall meetings, which were basically a sham, because every question, as I said, was submitted, first was screened, before it was allowed to be asked. Then we find out from the president of the state school board why this so-called propaganda tour was done. The president of the state school board said in the press, I quote, Dr. Martirano was specifically hired to keep Common Core in place regardless of what the legislature does. Nothing demonstrates this fact with the next move made by the state school superintendent, who after 10 months this past year of praising Common Core to the heavens, all of a sudden, this gentleman, Dr. Monterano, did a complete 180-degree turnaround. In November, just recently, a few months ago, this gentleman all of a sudden announces, after the academic spotlight he said was 99% overwhelmingly in favor of the current Common Core standards known as Next Generation here in West Virginia, said everything's great, everybody agrees with it, maybe 1% don't agree. All of a sudden then, in November, he unilaterally does a 180 and says, oh, we're going to repeal Common Core. Repeal Common Core. Okay, so which is it? Which is it? 10 months he spent pushing this propaganda tour at the taxpayer's expense, and then all of a sudden, he has a change of heart. What, did he read the few books that I gave him for a reading list? Doubtful. He probably threw those in the garbage. No. That's not what he did. That's not what he did at all. He is merely rebranding Common Core under a different name. He rebranded it. And if you like, so just to go on my next point, and I'll keep this brief, okay? Replacing them with these new standards, now called the College and Career Readiness Standards. Well, if you do a line-by-line comparison of the Common Core standards previous to November versus the new standards set in place, the College and Career Readiness Standards, they are virtually identical. Over 98% of the standards are exactly the same. This was simply an attempt to keep Common Core in place by essentially deceiving and fooling the public by rebranding the name. Instead of Common Core, they're going to call it this new label of College and Career Readiness Standards. It's exactly the same thing. This was not sincere. This was not honorable, in my opinion. And it was certainly either disingenuous or completely incompetent. After this announcement, further, the state school superintendent, I believe, violated the public review laws, which in code states that the public must have 60 days to review educational policy changes. And instead of applying with that law, that 60-day public transparent review law, Dr. Monterano instead just went with 30 days. So he could fast track it, get these standards approved, and if he went with the 60 days, which is the law, well, guess what? That would put him into January when the legislature is convened. So another basically violation of a clear-cut law. And then, not long after, he again willfully violated another law by ignoring the Open Governmental Meetings Act, which, by the way, that Open Meetings Act has been the law in West Virginia for over 40 years now. So I find it hard for anyone to just make a mistake and forget that that law exists. He did this because he established a new government commission to make policy changes and recommendations for policy changes to the Smarter Balanced Standardized Testing, the Common Core Standardized Test, and announced in the press it would be held behind closed doors, clearly violating yet another transparent law. This pattern of reckless use of taxpayer dollars, ignoring the will of the legislature, and violating sunshine laws, transparency laws, and open meetings laws, quite frankly, look up at the definition of the criteria for impeachment. Gross incompetence, dereliction of duty, several others. These are impeachable offenses, what this gentleman has done. I don't take that lightly. This man has been disingenuous over and over again to the public, and he's violated 2 laws clearly that I know of, and perhaps more. Furthermore, parents are unable to help their children with homework. And so there's another aspect to Common Core, and that is the bizarre nature of Common Core standards and curriculum, which is absolutely indiscernible to our students, our parents, and our teachers. This body needs to take action soon, not only to repeal Common Core, but to make it clear to the state school superintendent and the school board that if they do continue to ignore the will of this legislature, they will face consequences, up to and including articles of impeachment being filed. You know, as Seneca wrote in the 2nd century, it does not matter how many books you possess, but only the quality of the books that you study. It disappoints me so much that so much work has been done on charter schools when really the true critical problem in education has to be Common Core. Even if we get a charter schools bill passed, they're going to be teaching Common Core, which is completely backwards. It's hurting my constituents, especially in the lower grades. It's basically putting them backwards in education, and the next generation is really going to suffer because of these bizarre and simply unviable education policies that, you know, I can't even understand. I'm not a brilliant guy, okay? I got a degree from the Air Force Academy in general engineering and history. I'm not a brilliant guy, but I should be able to help my little girl with her math homework. And guess what? I can't. And she's in tears every night. She's a straight A student, and it causes so much anxiety for her to be able to try to just get through her homework every night. And I'm sure many other members that have children in grade school probably agree with me. So we need to develop our own standards, our own curriculum, keep it stable for our teachers in the long run, and we need to try to refuse these Washington, D.C. edicts, which continually change whatever's fashionable, starts coming into play, and forces us to adopt one fad after the next. So we need to create certainty, push a repeal bill of Common Core very soon. Otherwise, many members in this body are going to be forced to take action, potentially discharge a Common Core repeal bill out of committee, given time. So thank you so much, Mr. Speaker. I appreciate the time. I'm sorry for the long-winded talk, but I felt it necessary to address this right now. Thank you so much.
Gentleman from the 20th, Delegate Markham.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Permission to return to introduction of guests.
Without objection, gentleman may proceed.
Thank you. Ladies and gentlemen, I'd like to introduce my beautiful wife, Tish Markham. She has joined us. She was a little bit late for this session, but if the House would make her welcome.
Gentleman from the 50th, Caputo.
Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker. I promise I will be very, very brief. I know the Judiciary Committee is debating the Right to Work bill today, and I just got an interesting number that I want to share with this body, and in particular, those who are debating the bill. Walmart, which I'm not a huge fan of Walmart, I think everybody knows that in this body, has just closed 147 stores nationwide. And of that 147, 121 of those, or 82%, is in right-to-work states. Now, you can draw your own conclusions as to why or why not. I'm not here to influence that. Could it be because people don't have money to even shop at Walmart anymore? I don't know the answer to that. But for those who think this is a fix-all, 82% of their stores were in right-to-work states that just got closed this weekend. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Gentleman from the 48th, Doggett Miley.
Thank you, and I usually don't speak on Friday afternoons for the obvious reasons, but we are more than 25% of the way through this legislative session, and we've not taken any action to address the PEIA problem. I'm disappointed we didn't get the chance to do that today by way of the amendment, which I guess the fact that we laid it over reflects that it may not be quite as urgent to pass that bill as it was described to me over the last 24 hours. Now, as many of you know, it's the top priority of the Democratic minority to fully fund and restore PEIA. And while that's our top priority, we don't hold an exclusive patent on that issue. We invite and encourage that to be a bipartisan effort. But I think whatever we do, the first dollar of spending that we do as a body should be to begin taking the steps to fully fund the PEIA reductions. Now, there was an amendment that was put into the system that was later withdrawn that identified certain accounts from which we can begin that process. And one of those accounts is from a Senate fund that holds nearly $29 million or so. And I think there was a proposal to take half that. And there's a House account that has millions of dollars, and there was a proposal to take a portion of that. And to the extent the press needs a copy of that amendment and identification of those accounts, I have copies for you. But I'm hoping that over the weekend that members of the Finance Committee, both Republicans and Democrats, can work to solve the problems we have, both with regard to PEIA as well as bills that need paid by the state of West Virginia. I just read this morning of a report that purports to identify $300 million in waste, fraud, and savings that could occur here in our state. And while it's easy for me to ask the finance chairman, who does a fantastic job, to work over the weekend, these are critical issues that I think demand attention. And if there is indeed $300 million of savings in waste and fraud that can be identified in our state budget, then let's take some of that money and redirect it not just into PEIA, but to pay the state's obligations as well. But our first obligation needs to be to the school teachers we have in our state that are effectively taking pay cuts when they have PEIA benefits modified that cause them to pay more out of their pockets. And that also doesn't just include the school teachers, but also our state troopers and other public employees who haven't gotten raises, and we surely don't want to give them pay cuts. So, Mr. Speaker, thank you for that opportunity. I hope over the weekend and on Monday we can all come together in a bipartisan manner to address the PEIA problem and project the message to all of our state where our priorities are. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
John from the 23rd, Doggett Nelson.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Ladies and gentlemen, I'm sorry about speaking on a Friday. I'll be brief. My mother is a school teacher, and I share the same concerns as the gentleman from the 48th. West Virginia has some of the lowest paid teachers in the country. I think it's something we need to address. In my hand right here is a bill with bipartisan support. I think that will put our money where our mouth is. I think this bill sets the example of what needs to happen. And what this bill will do is it will cut every elected official in the state of West Virginia and the state's school board's pay by 25% immediately following the next election, and that money will be sent to fund PEIA. I think if we're going to make people around the state take cuts, if they're going to suffer, if we're going to tighten up our budget, I think we should lead by example. I think every single one of us should do that. And I'll be submitting that to bill drafting in just a little while. Secondly, in regards to the comments from my good friend from the 50th, I'm having a really, really tough time with that piece of legislation because I come from a union family. And I'm not here to take position right now. I'm still hearing the debate. But I will tell you that I was researching this subject last night, and Ford Motor Company in Michigan, I guess, which passed similar legislation in 2013, just gave every one of their United Auto Workers employees a $9,300 bonus. And when I further investigated into this, I was reading comments from the United Auto Worker, I believe it's the vice president. I can't remember his name right off the top of my head. But he had talked about the opportunity that was provided for his members. So I ask everybody in the body to look those articles up and read it and make an opinion for yourself. And closing, leadership from the Veteran Affairs Committee, both Democratic and Republican, will meet in my office immediately following floor session. Everybody have a great weekend. Please be safe going home, and thank you for your time, Mr. Speaker.
Lady from 43rd, Doug Campbell.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I just wanted to stand up and comment in regards to the minority chair who mentioned about our focus on PEIA. You know, we all come down here and we have our constituents that give us bills that they'd like to see passed, and we all have our own personal issues that we have. But this is pretty much a statewide issue. And, you know, we were told about the troubles of PEIA this fall in the interim seniors and PEIA meeting. But we didn't have any other meetings after that, you know, and then we started getting letters from individuals who are PEIA recipients. And I come from a family that my father worked for the Department of Highways, and he was a PEIA recipient until he passed away. And you know, what we're looking at and how it's going to affect the people who are state employees, it's not only the teachers, but it's every single state employee, every single retiree who is on a fixed income. And I was at a meeting, and I have to quote what this lady said, and it really brought it to reality to me, because we were talking about all the other issues that we're probably going to address why we're here this year. And the lady she is a state employee, and she said to me, "Rome is burning. What are we doing?" And I think that is so true. We have got to address the PEIA issue. The citizens of West Virginia are looking at us to see, are we addressing what could be a very, very big hardship once again on the state employees who for how many years have not got a raise. If we do not fix this problem completely, we are going to be taking more money out of the pockets of the working people of West Virginia. And I just think that we need to focus on getting the fix to PEIA. We are already 2 weeks into the session. Time is going to be running out, and I think the citizens of West Virginia, the state employees, deserve our direct attention to this problem. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
The gentleman from the 58th, Doug Cole.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Ladies and gentlemen, I would like to accomplish 3 things in the short term. Number 1, I'd like to pay the state bills. There is an urgency in this end of this budget year, a cash flow crisis, a crunch right now that threatens our ability to pay our bills. Number 2, I'd like to use rainy day funds after prudent and careful consideration, and only after prudent and careful consideration. And number 3, I'd like to find solutions to the PEIA issue. Those are 3 things I would like to do. I think there's a good deal of support for all three of those things. The amendment that's pending that's been brought up today helps me with none of those things. That amendment helps with none of those things. That amendment is a political tactic. There's a couple problems with that amendment, certainly. It takes money from the rainy day fund. It actually redirects the money that we're trying to use to pay our bills in the governor's proposal to fill the budget shortfall, the crisis right now. But it doesn't help the PEIA shortfall. The shortfall for PEIA is in the plan year 2017, and that is a supplemental appropriation for this year, 2016. So I have concerns over how it was construed, if it actually accomplishes any of the things that I'd like to do. But we need to work on those three things right now. Pay our bills, use the rainy day fund after prudent consideration, and work together to find a solution to the PEIA. And that amendment doesn't help us do those things. And I would ask this weekend that consideration be given to help them solve those three things in the short run. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Jump from the 20th, Doug Markham.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Ladies and gentlemen, I have three things that I want to see accomplished this session. And the first thing I want to see done is let's get coal miners back to work. Let's get jobs in the state of West Virginia, especially the southern part that's suffering. Let's put our coal miners back to work. There's legislation we have in front of us that's not moving that could put coal miners back to work, and that's the Intrastate Coal Use Act. Let's push that bill through. Let's help get coal miners back to work. Let's also focus on PEIA. You know, we've heard all this discussion. We're going to do it. We're going to do it. Well, we're a fourth of the way through the session, and we've done nothing. So I'm appalled by the political comments that have been made today that we're going to do it. We're going to do it. Well, let's do it. Let's quit sitting on our hands. Let's fix PEIA for the retirees, for the school teachers, for the individuals, the middle class, the people who have not received a raise in years, the retirees, the veterans, those who deserve it. Feeding off of that, I looked at the first bill introduced in the Senate, SB 1. What is that bill? Everybody in here knows what it is. Senate Bill 1. That is right to work legislation, sponsored by the Senate President and the other chamber. So we run in this House and take up Senate Bill 1, sponsored by the Senate President, before we take up any bills to help our coal miners go back to work, or before we take up any bills in this House to fix PEIA. So, ladies and gentlemen, I'm appalled by what we're doing here. This is not right. We got coal miners in southern West Virginia who are losing their homes. They're losing their livelihood. They're moving out of state. But yet we got legislation here to help them, but it's not moving. Mr. Speaker, thank you. And I just ask that the leadership team in this House on both sides take a good look at what we're doing. Because what we have done is we've ran Senate Bill number 1 as one of the top priorities, when we should be focusing on coal miners number 1 and PEIA number 1. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Jump from the 55th, Doug Spinago.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Just briefly, since the gentleman from the 58th accused of politics on this PEIA amendment and suggested that our bills need to be paid and things are running out. And this is the second consecutive day the bills have been laid over for us to take action upon. So if there's that such urgency, let's just take them up and vote on them one way or the other. Now, it's been my number one priority from coming down here and members of the caucus. There's at least 11 Democrats, well, myself and 10 other Democrats that are on that bill. We truly believe, with over $800 million in the rainy day fund in the state of West Virginia, it's raining on teachers. There's a $120 million shortfall. In this past year, which we're talking about, there were $35 million in benefit cuts and $33 million were drained out of the account. Now, this does not put all of $120 million back into the account, but it's a start. If you don't like it, fine. Debate on it. Vote up or down. But that's our number one priority now. It's been said, we are a quarter through the year. And now we're just talking about PEIA, which was our number one issue before we even spoke here. But what we're repealing a prevailing wage, right to work, religious freedom bills, gun bills, every social agenda under the sun, but we're not worried about the issues that are affecting working West Virginians. So we want to take these issues up. We want to debate them up or down, and we would just request. Now, we know that we don't have enough members over here, and bills get laid over. We're just in the minority, but we can make amendments, and we can suggest changes to the bills as they come through, and we will continue to do so. We would just request that there is such an urgency that this body put them up there so we could vote on them. Thank you.
Gentleman from the 22nd, Delegate Moffett.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I rise today because I do want to applaud the Cardinal Institute and the savings they've identified. The misappropriations that we've inherited for years, that we've seen them expose, is great to finally have a conservative think tank working for us in this state. When you go home this weekend, which tomorrow should be a work day, it's one of the 60 days we're all supposed to be here, but you're all going home. One of those 60 days, when you go home, when we're not doing our work here, make sure you talk to all your fairs and festivals people, because those monies are not essential monies. Those monies should be pulled back and will be pulled back if we follow the Cardinal Institute and their recommendations. So make sure you people know. The other issue is my friend from the 23rd mentioned that article from Forbes magazine. It was a September 7th, 2015 magazine where it says, right to work, the new threat hanging over UAW contract talks with Detroit automakers. And Jimmy Settles, the UAW vice president in charge of the UAW's Ford department, isn't too worried though. Quote, we'll probably lose a few, end quote, he concluded. Quote, but over time, we'll get them back. I look at this as an opportunity, he told me when we sat down for an interview ahead of the current round of bargaining. I represent workers in other states with right-to-work laws. We do very well with our retention rates. That's not the scare tactics we're hearing. High 90s percentage. The law gives us an opportunity to get closer to our membership. This isn't me, this is Jimmy Settles. It opens up a dialogue on why we should be in the union, he said, citing examples of community building and job growth. So as people want to play political football with the PEIA and the retirees and the insurance, PEIA didn't happen overnight. I've met with some of the board members. I've requested to meet with other board members that are actually sitting in the galley, but they refuse to talk. Some do, some don't. PEIA is an issue that has been coming for 5 years. We have not put money into it for 5 years. No private employer, no private employee has not seen their insurance go up in the past 5 years. PEIA has been kept steady because we raided the piggy bank. The piggy bank's gone. That money is gone. And now there's a new majority here that's got to deal with the issue. And we will. We have to. It's not fair to those who have retired on the fixed income and that are getting the brunt of it because of the 80-20 rule. We do need to find the funds to take care of those retirees. The government is the employer. I was asked last night, why are we talking about taxes and stuff to take care of PEIA? The government is the employer for those employees. We, as the representatives of the government, are acting as the employer. So we owe them that benefit. But to play games with it just to get an up or down vote and delay our bill paying, I think is irresponsible. And I know the chairman is going to work on it. We have commitments from the chairman to work on it. So I would recommend that we all get together and work together to address this issue that's been coming down the road for 5 years. I'm also want to make sure everyone realizes the scare tactics that have been put out shouldn't happen. Listen to the voices of people who have deal with this on the front line. Listen to these guys. Don't be afraid. Many companies will not look at us if we're not right to work. If that's the case, and we do need jobs, I agree with the delegate from Mingo. We do need jobs. Our southern areas, Lincoln, Logan, Boone, Mingo, becoming ghost towns because we don't have jobs, because of the coal mines. We've been dependent on the coal mines for too long. We need to get our miners back to work. We need to fight for our coal and get it used. We have our interstate coal use bill that was passed in energy yesterday. We need to get that moving. We need to get other bills moving. But right to work is a jobs bill and will hopefully bring more companies to our state. Thank you. I hope to see you tomorrow.
John from the 16th, Delegate Morgan.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I believe the gentleman from the 22nd said, why don't we tax some stuff? And the easiest way to do that, and you all knew I was probably going to stand up and say this, is a 1-cent sales tax. You can laugh. $200 million. What did we just say we were short? $120 million in PEIA, $80-some million to pay our bills. That adds up in my mind to almost $200 million. Now, there's a lot of other things that need to be done. I'm just saying that that is a relatively easy, quick way to get out of this problem that all West Virginians can share a part of the burden in, and you can take it off just about as easy as it was put on if you find other solutions. Just think about it over the weekend, as everybody else has said. Thank you.
John from 37th, Delegate Pushkin.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I promise to be very brief. I just want to address a couple things that I just heard. The gentleman from the 22nd claimed that the 30-some members of the minority party were holding up a supplemental appropriations bill. I believe we voted against laying it over. We could have voted on it today, could have went on second reading today. We voted against laying that bill over. We're not holding up a supplemental appropriations bill. We're ready to vote on it. It was also stated that businesses won't come here until we're a right-to-work state. I haven't heard that from any of my constituents. Leading up to this session, what I heard from the people that I represent was fund PEIA. Keep her promise to people who were told the pay's not so great, but the benefits are. Let's keep our promise to those people. And businesses will not come here, but it's not because we don't have right to work or we do have right to work. Businesses aren't going to come here until we educate the workforce, and we're not going to be able to educate the workforce until we pay our teachers to stay here. We're going to have the lowest paid teachers in the country if we don't fix PEIA. We're not going to be able to educate the workforce and bring businesses here without teachers.
Gentleman from the 13th, Delegate Ely.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. And respecting the passion and the sincerely held beliefs of my good friend from the 16th, I would ask that his comments be printed in the appendix of the journal. Thank you.
Without objection, remarks will be printed in the appendix of the journal. Further remarks by members. Miscellaneous business. Gentleman from the 58th.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Subject to announcements, I move the House adjourn until 11 a.m. on Monday.
Other announcements. Gentleman from the 64th, Delegate Householder.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. The Committee on Finance will meet Monday afternoon beginning at 1 o'clock for the Department of Commerce budget hearing, and again at 2 o'clock for the Department of Transportation and Parkways Authority budget hearing. Following the budget hearings, the committee will consider legislation and the agenda will be posted.
Gentleman from 38, Delegate Lane.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Ladies and gentlemen, the Judiciary Committee will return to work this afternoon at 1:30. And on Monday, February the 1st, the Judiciary Committee will be meeting at 9 a.m. The agenda will be posted.
The gentleman from 61st, Delegate Duke.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Your Committee on Education will meet Monday, February the 1st at 2 p.m. The agenda will be posted.
Gentleman from the 41st, Delegate Hill.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Your Committee on Government Organization will meet at 2 o'clock Monday, February 1st in the Government Organization Committee room. The agenda will be posted.
Gentleman from the 48th, Delegate Hamrick.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Your Committee on Roads and Transportation will be meeting Monday at 1 p.m. unless the session goes over, and then we plan to meet at 5 p.m.
Jump from the 42nd, Delegate Canterbury.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. The Finance Committee Subcommittee on Legislative Rules will meet on Monday, February 1st, 2016, following the afternoon meeting of the full Committee on Finance in room 460M. The agenda will be posted. Members of the subcommittee are Delegates Fritsch, Guthrie, Longstreth, Westfall, and myself. Thank you.
Jump from 28th, Delegate Cooper.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Just as a reminder, the chairman mentioned this prior, but I'll mention it again. The majority and minority chairs of the Veterans Affairs and Homeland Security Committee will meet immediately following this session. Thank you.
Lady from 16th, Delegate Miller.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. This is a reminder that your reservations for the Speaker's dinner, which is next Tuesday, need to be in today. I don't care if you have your checks with you or your money with you today. What I need is a number count. You can always pay for your dinner next week. So please, if you intend to come to the dinner, please let me know immediately following session. Thank you.
Jump from the 8th, Delegate Anderson.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. The Republicans will caucus in the chamber at 10:30 a.m. on Monday.
Further announcements. Not the question for the House is the motion by the gentleman from the 58th that the House stand adjourned until 11 a.m. on Monday. All those in favor will say aye. Those opposed, no. Ayes appear to have it. The ayes do have it. Declare the House adjourned until 11 a.m. on Monday.
And this has been the House of Delegates, the recording from earlier this morning on the West Virginia Channel. And this concludes today's broadcast of the West Virginia Legislature on the West Virginia Channel. We'll be back Monday morning at 11 with more action from the floors of the State Senate and the House of Delegates. This program reminder, the Legislature Today, our nightly broadcast of legislative news and information, airs at 6:30 and 11:30 every weeknight on West Virginia PBS. The program also can be heard on public radio, weeknights at 6:30. The Legislature Today will be repeated weeknights at 10 and weekday mornings at 6:30 here on the West Virginia Channel. I'm Beth Voorhees for the West Virginia Channel, a service of West Virginia Public Broadcasting.